Alright, hello everyone, my name is Disc, and in this video we have a level 13 Stonevault. I do believe it was recorded last week, so bear with me as I make the calls. I'm going to try and do this kind of just in one take without a preview, but it was a pretty good key overall and we timed it, so it's going to be a really good upgrade from my last Stonevault. If you're new to my channel, thanks for tuning in. I try and put out 2 videos per week where we kind of go through some ideas and approaches to min-maxing each one of our spells. Also, I'm available on Metafy.gg if you're interested in a private lesson. I do believe a one-on-one environment gives a lot more insight into where you might have deficits or loss in your gameplay, so please go check me out over there, Metafy.gg. Also, if you're interested in any of my UI elements, those are open to all of my students through Metafy or members of the channel, so please consider joining the channel as a member. That is a great way to show support. But as usual, I do want to quickly flash the talents, and I wanted to use this section today to talk a little more generally. And yeah, so let's start on the pre-side. A couple things I wanted to point out here are these 2 defensive points at the bottom. I know I talk about it a lot, but especially as you're getting into higher keys, it's really all about your defensive plays. These are spells you want to press anytime there's damage. And although, you know, if you're running 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, you can probably get by without defensives. But the idea in playing lower keys, it's a progression. You want to practice in lower keys what you need to do in higher keys. So playing defensives is the name of the game. I have these macroed together since they don't have globals. Makes it really easy to kind of cycle between them. And for both of these points, I have one of 2. I really think that's all you need. And then another point I wanted to talk about, I was running from Darkness Comes Light, but I now have gone back to the 10% damage reduction. And that's mainly because I'm breaching into 15s now. And I think there is a breaking point where you don't need that extra 10%, but in higher keys, I feel like you kind of do, and it's really all about multipliers and stacking our defensives, and it's really easy talent point to play since it's passive. And then on the discipline side, I do want to kind of just call myself out. I was running Borrowed Time instead of Dark Indulgence, but now I am back to Dark Indulgence, sue me. But a mistake that I was making, I was taking the Borrowed Time to help with haste and help with my opener of my pet window. But what I noticed, I think only last night, is my Changeling was set to buff crit. So I went ahead and changed my Changeling back to buffing haste, and it really has done a lot to alleviate that haste problem. So I'm back into Dark Indulgence, which is some pretty free output. And then the rest of this is standard. If anyone has questions about any of this, please feel free to ask. And then with all that being said, let's go ahead and clip over to the key. All right, here we go. And for the record, I am re-recording this. Since I watched it through, I noticed that there was more wrong in here than right, and I wanted anyone who's watching to kind of take this as a video of what not to do. From my point of view, from the DPS's point of view.
So here we are. High Speaker Eirich. Or is it just Eirich now?
But on open here, we have one attack we're tracking. It's on the nameplate. It's the AoE attack, leading in with a healthy amount of dots. And here goes our pet. It's really all about playing defensives here. It is major. And we also have a lot of decurses, which proved to be a problem, not here but later. We have 3 decurses in group. There is no reason people should die from these. The pet rift window is over. I have a rift to give. Let's see what I do here. Looks like I'm just farming a little bit of CDR, which is fine. Whenever the pet is far away, it is a good idea to kind of just spend a little bit of time farming him back. That's Smite and Penance. And with all of these group-wide earth attacks, you can max range them. Pro play. Setting my focus early. And this is a little spooky ooky because we have 3 of these guys. I really want to get max range, get dots out, and go straight into a pet window. And back on the subject of dispels, I'm noticing more and more as I play keys, when anyone other than a healer is required to dispel, they just don't understand the importance of that mechanic. It's just a complete misunderstanding when it comes to the game. So dispels are one of the few mechanics in WoW that are reaction bound. You're meant to get them quickly. It's a game of how quickly can I get them. You don't ever want to let them sit and tick. And when it comes to DPS classes these days and pugs, I really feel like they just don't have any understanding of that. They think WoW is just about pew pew zug zug, and they just don't play their utility spells, which are really what it's all about. So on this boss, it's just a back and forth with our rotations, but we start with a half rotation, then a full rotation. That's kind of just the demand of the play. And it's also about cycling defensives. So let's pay attention to how I play my defensives. And we also have boss dispels. I have one cast bar for the boss, which is Aqua. We have to dispel before the bar completes. So here goes the half rotation to lead, casting Radiance on the Mage in the center of the cluster. And on this first dispel mechanic, the tank managed it himself. And the idea here is we just want the collapse to happen after the beams. So that's really the only attack I'm tracking. And now on the second one, it is more damage. So here's our full rotation. Dispelled late just to get some heals out first, working a Radiance as planned. And that was paired with our shield wall, Desperate Prayer. And so prepping for the next half rotation window, leading in with some standard long atonements. Love keeping renews on tanks. And here goes just the Rift. Dispel. Radiance in the middle as planned. When it comes to our window, a ramp in with Radiance is pretty weak in my opinion, but we always want to plan a Radiance in the Rift window, and that's what we're doing here. And for this one, this is the stronger hit with a full pet Rift rotation. Pains up myself for the comfort plus a barrier plus fade. And if I were to critique myself there, I believe my pain sup fell off a second too soon, so a slightly delayed pain sup would have been better. And prepping for the half rotation window, let's just do long atonements in party. We're aiming for 2s with the stack. Life the Druid, he was sinking lowest. Renew on tank. Long atonements in party. Here goes the full rotation. Pet, Death, Rift Penance. Paints up myself for comfort, thankfully because there was a 3 stack. And again with that one, now that I'm watching this the second time, my paint sup was cast a little too soon. So if you're ever going to give your paint sup here, give yourself a paint sup here, a slight delay is better. Half rotation plus executes. Radiance off of the Mage in the center of the cluster. That was my Desperate Prayer and Fade because we had a 3 stack on accident. And here's where I would say I make a mistake. So boss is almost dying at most. I should be sending a Rift, but I sent a pet and a Rift. And watch what happens. So you really have to be careful how you send your pet, because now going into the next pull, he's almost a minute away. It's not a good spot. We have deaths here. I would say the pet is a contributor, but a bigger contributor is the team not knowing what dispels are. So we have 3 dispels in party, and watch when they go out. It's a big play to dispel here because it overlaps with the group-wide attack, which we're tracking on the Despoiler's nameplate. Boom, I'm cursed and dead.
Wish you had lasted a little
so
longer.
It would have played different if a curse, a decurse happened instantly. And the problem is people just don't understand how those mechanics work. They are a game of reaction time. The idea is how quickly can I get a dispel out. Health potion, just had to recover. That was not good. So looking at the decurses down there, Shaman did 0. There's no excuse. He just doesn't understand. I don't know how to I don't know how to help people with that. Okay, so in this pull, we have the big machine, Darkest Red Enemy, starting with dots, getting my focus out early. And we also have targeted casts here, so watching for the white dotted line in party, it indicates that someone's about to get hit, and I was selected. So seeing it coming, I went ahead and cast my double defensive macro for Fade and Desperate Prayer. And that was a 6 Torment window. Going into a Rapture. Another really good play of Rapture here. This isn't a good example, but what you can do with a single target dot, you can stagger your Rapture shields in between the ticks of damage and turn Rapture into a single target heal. I gave the Mage a couple of them. So in this next pull, a lot of mobs and a really good play for us to play Psychic Scream. So pay attention to my icon, it'll glow when it's time for us. I have it queued in here to track the heal mechanic. This is a really good idea to interrupt that heal. You'll hear a trumpet sound, you'll see the bar, the fear icon will glow, and a good rule of thumb is to play fear after your cooldown window. So there was a 6 Torment window and a fear. So there's a lot of ways you can min-max your Psychic Scream. A good rule of thumb is to play it after your window. So when you have no more heals to give, interrupting incoming damage is the next best thing. Let's see, scanning buffs, always a good practice. I have Barrier to give. Rapture is available, almost available. Pet and Rift is available. I have PI to give. Let's see how well I do this next pull. We have really good opportunities here for double executes if you play quickly. Pet, Death, Death. Rift Penance. PI, doing good, doing good. Star. And I think I also make a slight mistake here with my decisions. But there was a fear after my pet window. So I'm sending a half rift here. And the mistake I would say I make is I go for a full pet rotation as well. You know, maybe in hindsight, maybe not a mistake. I think I do get 7 Torments here, but going into next pull I'm a little bit light. Potentially a non-issue because the next pull is light. I sent my 7th execute in the party over there just to get a little more out of it. Spreading my dots, getting my dots on the 3 bigger ones. And I think what I do here... Okay, so I send a half rotation with the Rift. I'm thinking I just need a little bit of CDR for next pull. You can get good CDR while the Rift is out. And the Rift is a pretty free spell to cast. It's a fairly short cooldown. And it looks like it's 2 seconds away going to next pull. We're totally set. And it's a group of 5, so we want to dot 3 and let our penance do the rest. Focusing on the darker red enemies. And we also have fears here. Fears and dispels on tank. So when it comes to dispelling, a pretty good rule of thumb, in a pull like this where the magic dispel stacks, you don't want to spend a dispel on a single stack. So a better idea is to wait for it to get to 2 or 3, then get your dispel. So switching targets there to catch executes, switching targets to keep my dots active. And a half rotation just to finish it out. Plus a fear on those heals. Dispel a 2-stack. And then coming up here, my mana's a little bit low, so I think I have a pretty good utility play. What I like to do is get dots out, which are heals, get a renew on the tank, which is a heal. Okay, it looks like I collapsed my Rift early in order to meld and drink. So Shadow Meld I think is one of the best racials for us as a Disc Priest. You can meld drink, you can meld single target res. Pretty cool. So on this fight, we're really only tracking 2 elements, and I only have one turned on with bigwigs. I've turned the second one on since, but we want to track the box that explodes too. But on open here, we have time to kill, so it's just a damage grab with a full pet rift window. And it's really all about playing defensives, and we see some mistakes here which we can highlight. But 10 seconds away for the first exhaust events, it's a great place for fade. And since we played enough CVR there, we're going to have a full window to give. So we have pet and rift, we want to overlap it with the vents, Q and fade, and vampiric embrace, it looks like. Work in a radiance during the rift for coverage. And here comes the box exploding, which we should track with bigwigs, barrier, and a personal shield. So attacks like that, you can always give shield to someone. Giving it to yourself is a good idea. Just helps you be a little extra defensive. And due to the way the CDR works here, here's the next event attack, and all we have is the rift. That is all we need, but we Q and fade for our personal. The rift is floating over there into La La Land. So knowing that the next attack is the group-wide hit, I have Pain Subs, I have Desperate Prayer. Let's see what happens. So here comes the exhaust vents plus a full rotation window, pet and rift. Pet death, rift penance, followed by a couple of spells first, then the radiance. Darkness is down, but I do not get lucky enough. So Desperate Prayer was available. That is its moment to be played, and I missed it. If Desperate Prayer wasn't available, that's a perfect time for a personal pings up. But overall, that was just a miss from me. I think if you're wondering, health potion just to recover. When I watched this back, this was recorded probably over a week ago. I've had a lot of experience since then, and I'm kind of cringing at my gameplays, but I think we can use those as talking points. But what was I trying to say? Oh, I think as I'm watching this back, this was a key I was playing for IO at the time. And I can tell in my gameplay that I'm nervous. And I'm just having small mistakes here and there. That, for example, I should have cast my Rapture sooner to coat the party before the hit, and we had a death because I was late.
We may as well use it, unless you'd rather walk.
But in these keys, as we get into higher and higher keys, a lot of people are complaining. I kind of see the fun in it, but it's all about min-maxing. We really have such little room for error. Any of these little tiny mistakes, even if we're one global different, it can lead to deaths, and that's what happened there. But I think it's kind of fun, being that it's so tight. It becomes a problem when you have people, like in this party, that don't play WoW to min-max. They play WoW to zug-zug. I would say it's just there's a misunderstanding in how to approach the game. These people aren't really min-maxing their spec, and it makes Pug life almost impossible, which really sucks. So yeah, the point of my channel is to kind of teach how to min-max, and it's going to lead to more success in keys, if you ask me. But leading into this next hallway, we have fear opportunities, we have dispels, targeted casts of people about to get hit with the dispel, and really all we want to do is find our focus target early, lead with a healthy amount of dots, and get our pet out ASAP, leading with healthy long atonements in party. And that Shaman got the dispel mechanic, but since he's not dispelling me, I did not dispel him. I think that was very intentional. But I did give him PI. Switching targets to preserve dots, switching targets for a couple extra executes, 6 torments. There's my fear. So for the most part, I'm only tracking 1 cast per group. And in this group, it's the whale. It's a group-wide hit that's a really good spot for us to fear. And that fear was perfectly placed right after my cooldown window ended. So on these pulls, we really have to combo spells. Let's see how I do it. I think I remember. But we're tracking the attack on nameplate. Barrier and Fade. Pet plus Rift. Pet Death, Rift Penance. Worked in a life on myself because I was sinking lower than the rest. Switched my targets for dot spread. And that was a 5 torment window, which is very common. We should be aiming for 6. 7 and 8 is bonus territory. But 5 is very common because we have to kind of break and do other things. But that was a pain sip on myself. Again, I think that was a nervous play. Plus Rapture. I'm not sure if I did it there, but a really good play with Rapture. I think we see it next or later. It's a good idea to lead into your Rapture with a Radiance. It not only buys a proc, it not only heals the party a little, but when you Rapture on top of Atonements, because of our mastery, the Rapture hits harder. So a Radiance into Rapture is a good idea. We have another Despoiler here, group-wide attacks, leading with 3 dots for a 5-party group. And let's see what I have here. Vampiric Embrace. So Desperate Prayer, Fade, Pet Death, Rift, Penance with Vampiric Embrace. Working in a Radiance midway as planned. The 5 Torment window was all we could get there. And now for the second group-wide attack, all we're going to have is a half rotation window, so the Rift. So the Rift is out slightly preemptively, queued in Fade as my personal. 2 Penance into the Rift, and a couple of Executes to quickly recover health. And leading into this next boss, I track the ad spawn on his nameplate, and I track the intermission as a bar timer. That's a meld drink just to get some quick mana. So for the intermission, really we don't need the pet, a Rift is enough. We really want to fully dump everything into the phase where the ads are dying. So that is defensives, that is Vampiric Embrace, that's Barrier, Rapture, Pet, and Rift. The pet is not needed for the intermission. So the ads are out. I wanted to slightly... you want to slightly delay your pet because it takes a moment for the ads to begin dying. You don't want to cast your pet Rift window early. And we do have some deaths here, I believe. This is not a perfect play. Let's see how it goes. With all ranged in group, we shouldn't have any problem with these ads, but we do. Okay, so here's the intermission phase. All we need is the Rift. This is kind of a cooldown reset moment. And also while the boss is up, while he has that shield, Shadow Word Death is great. We get amplified output on shields, so something to remember is from our hero talents. And full atonements in party. Slightly delayed my window for ads to begin dying. A couple of spells before my Radiance. And I think, yeah, this is a bad barrier. So the placement was bad, the timing was bad. And right here we have one ad up. Let's see how it goes. Here's our Rift window. And I think this next round is when things start to fall off. Let's see. So everything is ready. Rapture is almost here. Desperate Prayer, Fade, and Paint Up are available. Slightly delaying for the ads to begin dying. Here goes my pet window. And I queue in Desperate Prayer and Fade. Yeah, when these ads are dying, it's a slight bait if you play your defensives on the intermission. You really want your defensives on the ad phase. Going into a Rapture here. And here is where I'd say we have a slight mistake from the DPS. Yeah, they weren't focusing on ads in time. they kind of zerged it at the end there before the phase. And when they both died too closely together, it led to deaths. And I tried to pick up the recovery with a defensive penance into myself. It just did not work. So here we had to use our final battle res. I send PI, really just doing everything we can at this point to not lose with a party of 4. So PI is out. We also send Lust. We're really just trying to ensure the win here. And I think this is a commit. We're kind of abandoning the ads. And an 8 torment window there. Really did everything I could for the win. So when it comes to bosses, and I think we see this on the next boss, it's a slight miss for me. A boss is a great opportunity to always try to get an 8 torment window because it's reliable, executes. You know, the boss will sit sub 20 for long enough. So on next boss, I think what I do is I send my pet window at 22%, and it's better in cases like that to kind of just hold for the execute phase. And a little bit better play here, not too bad since we're all ranged, is bait these guys into the wall so they stay stacked for the cleave. There's a full pet window. Big guy is pulled in. 5 torments, so I think that's all I get here. Noticing on his nameplate, we're tracking 1 attack. I went into a preemptive rapture, got a couple of us, not the full group. Let's see, I have Rift, but no pet. How do I play it? Yeah, so whenever the pet is only a couple seconds away, and that was a really clutch. I'm not sure if that helped or did anything, but I saw the guy was charging into his friend's group. A quick mind soothe there, I think, really helped. But what I was saying is if the pet... Oh yeah, I forgot that too. The Shaman is sitting out of my LOS for way too long. There needs to, I'm sure there's a weak art or something out there to help you stay in line of sight of your healer. Takes 2, you know, like I'm doing my best to stay in line of sight of all 5, but you have to do your part to stay in line of sight of your healer. That was 6 torments. But I think what I was trying to say back there is the Rift was ready, the pet was only a little bit away. A lot of times you want to just delay. Wait a couple of seconds, spam smite, spam penance to get your pet back into a combo window. Okay, so it looks like 2 dots are out. Pet and Rift is almost ready. It's going to take a little bit of time to get into this window. Okay, full atonements are in party. Pet, Rift are out. Divine Star early. Switch targets to preserve dots. Five torments was the best I could do. So I'm going to do another video, maybe even today, but now that I've changed my changeling back to the haste version, I don't think I'm getting as many 5s. You really want your average to be above 6. So let's see, Pet and Rift are available. There goes Pet Death, Rift Penance. A couple of spams first. Looks like no Radiance on this one. So in a pull where there's not much of a threat... I missed the 7. When there's not much of a threat, I will forfeit the Radiance just to get more CDR to help me get that final torment. Okay, so in these pulls, we have the group-wide hit again, focusing on the biggest guy, the Darkest Red mob. We have a mistake coming up here too, so pay attention to these stacks from the Earth attack. Oh, and that was another mistake I forgot about. So my Mind Blast was interrupted by the knockback, and my muscle memory was spamming for the penance, and my penance was cast before the Rift, and that's something you never want. Your penance will buff every bit of your Rift, so you always want Rift first, and I did not see in time that my Rift failed to cast. Had a little bit of loss there, but that's okay. I need to turn an audible on for that attack. Keeping those guys soothed. So we have PI. I believe we play it next pull. Just vamping a little bit. Looks like I have spells, but I'm holding. Personal shield to cover that incoming attack. And watch what happens here. Here's a mistake. We're saying in chat to wait. Looking at the timer of the earth attack. It has 20 seconds on it at a 3 stack. It'll carry over into this pull too. So what happens here, he jumped the gun just a little too soon. So it looks like the debuff was 2 seconds away from fading, and due to him not waiting 2 seconds, we lost 15. So it's kind of something you got to think about, and it's I'm noticing more and more when it comes to, again, doing things other than Zug Zug, people just don't have the experience or knowledge. It could have simply been just a mistake, but the tank wasn't watching the timer of that debuff and jumped the gun. Similar to how people don't know what or how to dispel. But noticing now in party, the earth attack is at a 5 stack. So that's what happens when you rush it. Really have to pay attention to party health. You have to pay attention to if your full party is present. Rapturing just to kind of help the recovery if we get hit again. Yep, so I'm noticing more and more as we get into this season, every role is expected to do more than just one thing, and that's where people are falling short. They just don't have the experience. So on this boss, we're only tracking one attack. It's the Reckoning. We want something overlapping with it every time. May it be a pet and or a rift or a rapture. And as a healer, I think it's totally fine to play greedy and get your debuff dispelled first. And the idea with the rift here is we want it to collapse after that hit. And I think that was a good example. Ripping the Shaman out of the Ick. I don't think all of my collapses are perfect, but let's see how the next one goes. So Mind Blast is out. It looks like we're in good time to have it collapse after the hit. Radiance is out as well. But the collapse was a fraction of a second too early. So kind of the name of the game is a rift is going to last around 11 seconds. Let's say that this attack is 5 seconds away. You also have to take into account the cast time of it. So if it's 5 seconds away plus a 3-second cast time, and our rift collapse is 11 seconds, you kind of have to do that math on the fly, and that collapse was much better timed. PI to give, what's going on? Let's see, I have a rift. Going into a rapture, hitting those that are atoned first. Clash shield, then raptured him to make sure he was atoned, the Shaman. And again, our raptures are going to hit harder on those that are atoned. That's our base mastery. Looks like so here's where I make a small mistake I was talking about. Boss is at 25% health, and I sent the pet. It would have been better if I waited, these 5 or 6 seconds to kind of set myself up for an 8 torment window. So let's see how many torments I get instead. Yeah, I kind of forfeited those torments and settled for a 6 torment window because I did not wait. I think Mage just ate the ground damage there, plus a dot, plus the Entropic Reckoning. Let's see here. And there's another slight mistake I would say, looking back in hindsight. At the very end of a dungeon, if it's your last boss, it's okay if you send a pet without the rift. And what I should have done there for a little bit more output is, even though I didn't have the rift, send the pet anyway and get the double death executes for the torments, I could have gotten the penance torment. So a lot of times it's a 2-for-1. We get twice as many rifts as we do pet. We really never want to send a rift without the pet. We can send, or we never want to send the pet without the rift, but we can send the rift without the pet. But situationally, if it's last boss, we can send the pet without the rift just for a quick damage grab. But yeah, overall, I don't think this was a good key. I hope we kind of use these as examples of things not to do. I have had a lot of experience since this key, and I don't think I would play it that bad in the future. So hopefully next time I put a Stonevault out, it will be better. But I think a lot of this was just due to nerves. But we had, quite a few small errors from myself, but that's what it's all about in timing keys. I would say we have major errors from the team. That is kind of just pug life. I really, I would really love to see more people in the community focus on teaching if you're an expert at one of your specs, rather than focusing on meta, which I think literally does nothing to serve the community. And it's situations like this where I think people just don't know any better, and I don't think that's an excuse. I think the individual is still the one to blame, but if they don't have any role models kind of teaching them right from wrong, it kind of creates this problem in the community where, we're just beating our face into the wall, and it becomes frustrating. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. But again, check out my Metafy if you're interested in a private lesson. Been getting a lot accomplished over there, a lot of really good lessons. If you're interested in any of my UI elements, please consider joining the channel as a member. That's a great way to support. Also, my UI elements are open to all of my Metafy students. So again, please check me out over there. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, Disc.